The silver oath blade gave its first warning before anyone touched it. A single note rang through Thornmere Hall, low and cold, and Prince Cassian Veyr went still as if something inside his body had heard its own death sentence. Then he looked at the scarred maid standing before the throne and turned his face to stone. For half a breath, no one moved. Then the court waited for him to ruin her. Elira Vale stood barefoot beneath the moon throne, wrists bound in ceremonial ribbon instead of iron, because the court preferred cruelty when it looked sacred. She wore a plain gray servant gown, her dark hair braided too tightly, her scarred arms and throat left uncovered by order of Priestess Morven. Scarred maid. That was what they called her. But Cassian had not looked at her scars with disgust. He had looked at them like he recognized something he had spent years trying not to name. The faint black mark at the base of his throat pulsed once when she was pushed before him. His hand curled against his side. His pale silver eyes flicked over her scars. Then away, too quickly to be indifference. Elira saw fear, not of her ugliness, of what she might awaken. Priestess Morven stood beside the altar in black moon silk, one hand resting near the covered blade. Beautiful, calm, and dangerous, she watched Cassian with the patience of someone who had not set a trap for tonight but for years. "Elira Vale," she announced. "Maid of the lower halls, scarred by unknown corruption, unclaimed by house, blood, or mate, has been brought before the silver oath blade." A few nobles whispered. Someone laughed softly. Elira did not lower her head. That small refusal made Morven's smile sharpen. The priestess leaned close to Cassian, her voice soft enough for the court to miss, but not soft enough for Elira. "The curse is listening, my prince. If the blade names her, your hand will answer before your heart can refuse." Cassian's jaw tightened. Morven's fingers hovered near the black mark at his throat. She did not touch him. She did not have to. The curse flared, as if trained to obey her breath. Cassian went rigid. Elira saw pain cross his face so fast, most would have mistaken it for anger. Morven whispered, "Reject her." Elira's breath caught. So that was why she had been brought here. Not to be tested. To trigger him. Cassian descended one step from the throne. Every sound in the hall thinned. He stopped before her, close enough that she could see blood where his fingernails had cut into his palm, close enough that the scars on her arms began to warm beneath the moonlight, close enough that his controlled mask nearly failed when her eyes met his. For one impossible second, the court vanished. Elira saw the man beneath the prince, a wolf trapped behind silver bars, a blade waiting in his hand, a scream locked behind his teeth. Something in him already wanted to kneel, and that terrified him. Morven lifted her voice. "By old oath law, the prince must look upon the woman brought before him and speak his will." Cassian's eyes held Elira's. "Forgive me." He did not say it. He did not need to. Then he spoke loud enough for the entire court. "I reject her." The words cut cleanly. 100 nobles relaxed. The priestesses bowed their heads as if justice had been done. Elira stood very still. Humiliation should have burned. Instead, it settled cold inside her chest. Because now she knew the rejection was not simple cruelty. It was a locked door, and she was the thing behind it. Morven smiled. "The prince has refused. Remove the maid." The covered blade answered. A low silver note rang again, deeper this time, violent enough to shake frost from the windows. The ceremonial cloth slid from the altar by itself, revealing a long, moonbright sword with a wolf-bone hilt and ancient runes carved down its blade. Every candle died. The court froze. Cassian stepped back as if struck. "No." The silver oath blade lifted from the altar. No hand touched it. Morven's smile vanished for the first time. The blade turned in the air, ignoring the prince, ignoring the priests, ignoring the court that had already decided Elira was nothing. Then it pointed toward her. The scars across Elira's skin ignited. She gasped, clutching her arm as silver pain rushed beneath every mark. But the scars did not bleed. They opened. Each one became a royal sigil. Wolf, moon, thorn, crown, bloodline, oath. Not wounds, blood marks. Ancient symbols burned into her skin as a child to hide what she was. The court screamed. Morven went pale. Cassian looked devastated. The silver oath blade lowered before Elira's bare feet. not to strike, to kneel. Its tip touched the stone, and the hilt bowed downward like a warrior before its sovereign. Silver fire rolled across the hall. Nobles dropped to their knees. Priests staggered back. The moon throne cracked once beneath the weight of the old law waking. Above Elira's head, moonlight gathered into the lost queen's diadem. Elira tried to step away. The ceremonial ribbons around her wrists snapped. The diadem settled into her hair, cold as winter starlight, heavy as a crown buried for centuries. The silver oath blade spoke in a voice no living court owned. The prince may reject the woman. Silver fire wrapped around Elira's scarred arms. But the oath has found its queen. Cassian staggered. The black curse mark at his throat split open. His hand flew to his sword. Not by choice. His fingers closed around the hilt, and horror broke across his face as his own blade dragged free. Elira finally understood the full truth. The curse had not waited for Cassian to love her. It had waited for the kingdom to name her. Morven recovered first. Her fear turned sharp, almost triumphant. At last, Cassian fought his own arm, every muscle straining as black moonlight crawled from his throat to his jaw. "Run!" he forced out. Elira could not move. The silver oath blade remained kneeling at her feet. The lost queen's diadem burned above her brow, and the wolf prince took one unwilling step toward the queen he had rejected to save. Cassian's sword scraped free 1 inch. The sound was small. The terror it caused was not. Every noble still pinned to the floor by the silver oath. Blade's ancient power watched the wolf prince fight his own hand. His fingers clenched around the sword hilt until the leather wraps split. Black moonlight crawled from the curse mark at his throat, threading down his arm like poison given purpose. Elira stood before him with the lost queen's diadem burning cold against her brow. "Run," he had said, but her feet would not move, because the moment the diadem settled into her hair, the hall had changed. She could feel the silver veins beneath the stone, the blade kneeling at her feet, the curse dragging Cassian toward her. Queen. The word did not feel like power. It felt like a door opening inside a locked room. Cassian took another unwilling step, his face twisted with pain. Elira. Her name in his mouth was worse than the rejection. Softa. Real. Priestess Morven moved behind him, her black moon-silk dress whispering over the floor as if she were gliding instead of walking. Most of the court was trapped on its knees, but Morven stood untouched. That was the first thing Elira noticed. The second was the ring on Morven's finger, a thin black band carved with the same crescent shape burning at Cassian's throat. Morven lifted that hand. Cassian's arm jerked. The sword came out another inch. Elira understood. Morven was not merely watching the curse. She was steering it. "Do not resist your blood, my prince," Morven said softly. "The prophecy has waited too long." Cassian gasped, every muscle rigid. "You promised it would sleep if I refused." "I promised you refusal would delay it." Morven's smile was calm enough to be cruel. "I did not promise the lost queen would stay hidden." Elira's scars burned brighter. "Lost queen." The words moved through the hall like a second blade. Elira looked down at the marks across her arms. They no longer looked like damage. The silver lines formed patterns too precise to be wounds. Wolf, moon, thorn, crown, bloodline, oath. A memory flashed. A child's wrist held over silver flame. A woman sobbing, "Hide her." A younger Morven whispering, "Scars are easier to explain than royal sigils." Then it vanished. Elira stumbled backward. The silver oath blade rose just enough to block Cassian's path. Not attacking him, warning him. Cassian froze, breathing hard, his own sword trembling in his grip. Morven's expression sharpened. "Move aside." The kneeling blade did not. For the first time, the priestess looked angry. Elira heard herself speak before fear could swallow the words. "You did this to me." Morven turned her eyes on her. The court seemed to shrink from that gaze, but Elira did not. The diadem held her upright. Or maybe it was the memory of a woman begging someone to hide her child. Morven twisted the black ring slowly around her finger, and the curse mark on Cassian's throat answered like a wound being reopened. "Every prince who crowned your bloodline died for it," Morven said. "I only made sure this one killed first." Cassian's eyes snapped to Morven. The curse dragged his sword higher. Elira saw the horror in him deepen. He had known about the prophecy. maybe even the danger. But he had not known this. Pain rose in Elira's chest so sharply it almost became rage. Not clean rage. Not cold rage. The kind that hurt because it had nowhere to go. Morven had not only scarred her, she had turned Elira's body into a hiding place, her shame into a lock, and Cassian's fear into the knife meant to finish what the fire had started. For years, Elira had believed the court looked away because she was ruined. Now she understood. They looked away because someone had taught them not to recognize a queen. Morven's ring flared black. Cassian lunged. Not fully by choice. Not fully against it. A terrible half-movement. His body forced forward, his will dragging backward. The sword flashed toward Elira's chest. The silver oath blade struck upward. Steel met silver with a sound that split every window in Thornmere Hall. Elira fell back as shards of moonlit glass rained around her. Cassian staggered, his face white with horror. His sword had stopped inches from her heart, held there by the oath blade. For one breath, they were close enough that she could see tears standing in his eyes. Not falling. He would not allow the court that much. "I am sorry," he whispered. Elira's throat tightened. She wanted to hate him. It would have been cleaner. But there was nothing clean about a man cursed to kill what he had tried to reject. Nothing simple about the pain in his eyes when his own hand nearly did it. Morven stepped behind him and pressed her ringed hand to the black mark at his throat. Cassian screamed. The sound tore through the hall. The curse erupted. Black moonfire wrapped his body, forming the shape of a massive wolf behind him, chained at the throat, eyes empty and violent. The nobles began to panic, but the ancient oath still held them kneeling. Elira stared at the chained wolf shadow. It was not a monster. It was trapped. Like him. Like her. The diadem burned brighter. The silver oath blade spoke again. The crown blood must answer what the curse buried. Elira looked down at it. Answer what? Morven answered for it, smiling now. Whether you die by his hand or let him die resisting. Cassian dropped to one knee, both hands locked around his sword as he fought to keep the blade from moving again. Black fire crawled up his throat toward his mouth. Elira, he forced out. If it takes me fully, run while the blade holds me. She looked from him to Morven, then to the court. Every person who had called her scarred now watched her as if her choice would decide whether they lived. The irony would have been funny if it did not hurt. The silver oath blade lifted higher, still kneeling but no longer passive. Moonlight gathered along its edge and spilled across Elira's scars. The royal sigils rearranged themselves, not hiding now, revealing. A line of ancient script burned across her collarbone. Elira could not read it. Morven could. Her smile vanished. The nearest old wolf lord whispered, "What does it say?" No one answered. So the blade did. The queen marked by pain may command the oath that pain concealed. Elira's breath stopped. Morven stepped back. Cassian lifted his head, hope and terror breaking through the curse at once. Elira looked at the sword in his hands, then at the blade kneeling at her feet. She finally understood the choice. Not death, not surrender. Comment? Elira reached toward the silver oath blade. The moment her fingers touched its hilt, every scar on her body burned white. Cassian cried out as the curse inside him recoiled. Morven shouted, "Do not let her take it!" But the court could not move. The blade rose into Elira's hand as if it had been waiting for her since the first scar was burned into her skin. It was cold, heavy, alive. Elira pointed it not at Cassian, at the black ring on Morven's hand. "Then let the oath hear me," Elira said. Her voice shook, but it carried. "If he was cursed to kill his queen, show me who taught the curse her name." The silver oath blade blazed. Morven's ring cracked. And from inside the black stone, a woman screamed with Elira's mother's voice. The scream from Morven's ring tore through Thornmere Hall like a wound reopening. Elira nearly dropped the silver oath blade. Not because the sound was loud, because some part of her body knew it before her mind did. She had no clear memory of her mother's face. Only fragments. Warm fingers brushing hair from her forehead. A lullaby broken by hurried breath. The scent of winter roses clinging to a cloak that vanished before dawn. But the voice inside the black ring reached past memory. It reached the place in Elira that had spent years aching for someone who never came back. Elira. The name broke on a sob. The hall went still. Elira's hand trembled around the blade. For a moment she was not a scarred maid beneath a cursed diadem. She was a child again, standing in cold corridors, wondering why no one had ever searched for her, wondering whether she had been too ruined to be missed. Then the voice cried again, "My daughter." Elira's knees almost gave. Cassian stopped fighting for one breath, the curse inside him recoiling as if the grief had struck it too. Morven clutched the cracked ring, her calm shattered. Silence. The woman inside the black stone screamed again. "Elira, do not let her close it." Elira's hand tightened around the silver oath blade. The weapon answered with silver fire, bright enough to turn every wolf-bone pillar white. The crack in Morven's ring widened, and for a heartbeat, a face appeared inside the black stone, not fully, not free, but reflected in moonlight and pain. A woman with Elira's eyes. Older, softer, terrified. Then Morven crushed her fist shut. The voice cut off. The silence hit Elira harder than the scream. "No," she whispered. Morven's face was pale now, but her eyes had turned hard. Do not mistake an echo for a mother. Cassian's sword jerked in his hands. Black fire crawled across his knuckles, dragging the blade toward Elira again. His knees dug into the floor. The chained wolf shadow behind him thrashed, its empty eyes fixed on the diadem above Elira's brow. "Morven," Cassian forced out, voice rough with pain. "What did you bind in that ring?" The priestess did not look at him. That told Elira enough. The silver oath blade trembled in her hand, pointing toward the ring as if it wanted to bite through the black stone and tear out the truth. Elira took one step forward. The court flinched. For years they had looked at her scars like signs of weakness. Now those same marks burned royal white across her skin, and every noble face in the hall carried the same question. What did we fail to see? Morven lifted her free hand. "Stay where you are." The command struck the hall. "Not at Elira." At Cassian. The curse mark at his throat split wider, and he gasped as the black moonfire climbed to his jaw. His sword rose another inch despite his locked grip. Elira stopped. Morven smiled faintly, regaining control piece by piece. "There is your first lesson, little queen. Every step you take toward truth pulls him closer to killing you." Cassian's eyes met Elira's. "Do not stop." He did not say it. He could not. But she saw it. He had rejected her to save her. He was still trying to save her now, even while the curse used his bones as a weapon. The pain in that nearly broke something inside her. Elira looked down at the blade in her hand. The queen marked by pain may command the oath that pain concealed. The words returned like a pulse. Command did not mean strike. It meant choose where the blade listened. Elira turned the silver oath blade away from Morven and pointed it at herself. A horrified sound left Cassian's throat. "Elira, no." Morven froze. "Good." Elira pressed the flat of the blade against the nearest scar on her forearm. Cold shot through her blood. The mark opened under the silver, not tearing, not bleeding, but remembering. The hall vanished. A vision rose from her skin. A hidden nursery beneath Thornmere's north tower. Moon curtains. A cradle carved with thorns. A woman holding a baby wrapped in black wool. Morven standing nearby with a bowl of silver flame. The baby cried. Elira felt that cry in her own throat. Her mother whispered, "Please." Not her skin. Morven's younger face was calm. "Then let the court find her." The silver flame touched the child. Elira screamed in the present. The vision broke before it could show more, but it had shown enough. Her scars were not accidents. They were hiding places. The hall stared at her in horror. Elira stood shaking, the silver oath blade still pressed to her arm, tears hot on her face. Not quiet tears. Not pretty ones. The kind a person cries when the body finally remembers pain the mind was forced to forget. "You made me hate my own skin," she said. Her voice broke. The court heard it. Cassian heard it. Morven's mouth tightened. Elira lowered the blade. "You made the world look away from me and called it mercy." For once, no one in the hall moved. Then Cassian's sword clattered against the floor. The sound snapped every eye to him. He had let it go. Both hands were bleeding from holding it back, but his fingers were open now. The cursed sword lay at his knees, black moonfire still licking along its edge. Morven stared. "Pick it up." Cassian did not. The chained wolf shadow behind him thrashed violently, but the prince kept his hands flat against the stone. Morven's ring flared. "Pick it up." Cassian bowed his head, as if the command were crushing his spine. But he still did not obey. Elira felt the first real shift in the curse. Not broken, not gone, but resisting. Because he was resisting, Morven saw it too. Her face sharpened with fear. "You cannot defy blood," she hissed. Cassian lifted his head. His eyes were silver through the black fire. "No, but I can make it choke on me first." Elira's chest tightened. It was not love. Not yet. It was worse. Trust beginning in the middle of a battlefield. The silver oath blade pulled in her hand, turning again toward Morven's ring. This time, Elira led it. The old wolf lord who had spoken before found his voice. "Priestess Morven, what did you bind inside that stone?" Morven's gaze swept the court. They were still kneeling, still afraid, but fear had begun to loosen from Elira and turn toward her. So she changed the story. As dangerous people always did. "She carries a bloodline that murdered princes," Morven said, voice ringing with old authority. "The scarred maid is not your queen. She is the reason Thornmere's heirs died screaming for generations." Cassian flinched. Elira saw it. So did Morven. The priestess pressed harder. "Ask him. Ask your prince what happens if he accepts her. Ask him why he rejected her before the blade spoke. He knows. His own blood knows." The court turned to Cassian. The curse mark pulsed at his throat. He could destroy Elira now with one truth, if fear chose his words. He looked at her. Then at the court, "I rejected her," he said, voice raw, "because I was told crowning her would make me kill her." Morven's smile returned. Then Cassian continued, "And I was coward enough to believe the woman who made the cage." Morven's smile died. A shudder passed through the hall. Elira stared at him. The words did not undo the rejection. They did not heal the years, but they struck the curse like a hammer against glass. The chained wolf shadow behind Cassian lowered its head. For the first time, its empty eyes flickered with silver. The silver oath blade rose in Elira's hand. Morven stepped back. "Elira." Her mother's voice whispered from the cracked ring, weaker now, desperate. "The curse has a root." Elira's breath caught. The black ring split further. A thin line of moonlight escaped, drawing itself across the floor toward the throne. Not toward Cassian, not toward Elira, toward the base of the moon throne, where old blood had dried between the stones. Morven lunged to close her fist. Elira raised the blade. "Show me," she commanded. The silver oath blade struck the floor. Moonfire ripped through the hall. The base of the throne cracked open, revealing a hidden hollow beneath it. Inside lay 7 small wolfbone crowns, and one child's silver bracelet stained with Elira's blood. Morven whispered, "No." The court recoiled. Cassian stared at the bracelet like it had cut him. Elira could not breathe. The ring screamed again. This time, not in pain, in warning. And from beneath the moon throne, something old and cursed began to wake. The thing beneath the moon throne did not rise at once. It breathed first. A cold breath pushed through the cracked hollow, carrying the smell of old blood, buried fur, and silver left too long in a grave. The 7 wolfbone crowns trembled where they lay beneath the throne. The child's bracelet stained with Elira's blood began to glow. Every noble in Thornmere Hall remained on their knees, not because the silver oath blade still held them, because no one wanted to be the first to stand before whatever the old court had buried. Cassian stared at the hidden hollow, his face pale beneath the black moonfire, still clawing at his throat. "What is that?" he asked. Morven did not answer. That frightened Elira more than any explanation could have. The priestess who had smiled through a curse, through a near murder, through Elira's mother screaming inside a ring, now stood perfectly still with her hand closed around the cracked black stone. The ring bled moonlight between her fingers. Elira took one step toward the throne. The floor groaned. Cassian's head snapped toward her. "Elira, don't!" The warning came too fast, too raw. She stopped, but not because he commanded her. Because the curse in his throat pulsed the moment she moved closer to the hollow. The black wolf shadow behind him lifted its head, chain links rattling against nothing. The old thing beneath the throne was connected to him, to his curse, to her blood. The silver oath blade tilted in Elira's hand, guiding its point toward the 7 wolfbone crowns. The blade did not speak this time. It waited. Morven found her voice at last. Close the hollow. No one moved. Her eyes swept the priests. Now, one old priest crawled forward on shaking hands, ash robes dragging across the silver-lit floor. He reached toward the cracked base of the throne. The moment his fingers touched the stone, the child's bracelet flashed. The priest screamed. His hand did not burn. It aged. Skin shriveled. Nails blackened. Veins turned silver under the skin. He jerked backward, sobbing, clutching a hand that had become ancient in a single breath. The court recoiled. Elira gripped the blade harder. Morven's face tightened, but she did not look surprised. You knew, Elira said. The words came out rough. Morven's gaze cut to her. I knew the throne kept what the kingdom could not survive remembering. The children? Silence. Cassian looked sharply from Elira to the hidden crowns. Children. The word struck the hall harder than any scream. The 7 wolfbone crowns were small because they had not belonged to kings. They had belonged to heirs. Elira's stomach turned. Her mother's voice whispered from the cracked ring, faint but urgent. Not heirs. Elira went still. The bracelet pulsed again. The silver oath blade warmed in her hand. Then what were they? Elira asked. The answer came from beneath the throne. Not in words. In a vision. Moonfire spread across the floor, forming a circle around the hollow. Inside it, 7 children knelt in ceremonial white, each wearing a small wolfbone crown. Their faces were blurred, not by time, but by deliberate erasure. Around them stood priests. Behind them, younger Morven held the black ring. At the center of the circle stood a boy with pale silver eyes. Cassian. Younger. No older than 13. A curse mark newly carved into his throat. He was shaking. A priest placed a sword in his hands. Elira heard a child's voice, Cassian's voice broken with terror. I don't want to. Morven answered from the vision, calm and merciless. A prince who cannot kill for the realm cannot rule it. Cassian staggered backward in the present. No. The vision continued. The 7 crowned children stepped toward young Cassian one by one, not attacking, offering their hands. The first child said, We remember you. The second said, We forgive you. The third said, Wake up. Then Morven lifted the black ring. Young Cassian's eyes went empty. The sword rose. Elira tried to turn away, but the blade in her hand held the vision open. The moonfire flared. The images did not show blood, only crowns falling. One, then another, then another. 7 small crowns striking stone. Young Cassian screaming after the curse released him. Morven kneeling beside him, holding his face between her hands. You saved the kingdom, she whispered. Forget the cost. The vision shattered. Thornmere Hall remained silent. Cassian was on both knees now. The black fire at his throat had gone thin and jagged, like a wound reopened from the inside. His sword lay forgotten on the floor. His hands were shaking. Elira could not breathe. The curse had not begun with her. It had been trained, fed, practiced on children who had carried pieces of the lost queen's bloodline. Morven had used Cassian as a weapon long before he was old enough to understand the shape of his own hands. Cassian looked at Elira. There was no defense in his eyes. No plea, only horror. I don't remember, he whispered. Morven's voice snapped across the hall. Because memory would have broken you. Cassian flinched. Elira felt something inside her shift. She had wanted to hate him cleanly. But there was nothing clean left in this hall. Only victims turned into weapons, then ordered to be grateful they had survived. The hidden hollow beneath the throne breathed again. The 7 wolfbone crowns rose from it. Slowly, they floated into the air, circling Cassian like moons around a condemned star. The child's bracelet rose last and drifted toward Elira, stopping before her chest. Morven's ring cracked wider. Elira's mother's voice came through, faint but clear. They were not dead. The court erupted. Elira stared at the bracelet. What? The voice trembled. Their blood was taken. Their names were hidden. Their wolf spirits were sealed beneath the throne to keep the curse alive. The wolf shadow behind Cassian lifted its head. Its empty eyes flickered again. Silver, not monstrous. Lost. The 7 crowns turned toward Elira, then toward the chained wolf shadow. Elira understood. The thing waking beneath the throne was not one creature. It was 7 stolen wolf spirits, braided into the curse that forced Cassian to kill any queen who might free them. Morven had not protected the kingdom from the lost bloodline. She had imprisoned it under the prince's skin. Cassian bowed forward, shaking as the crowns circled him faster. Elira! His voice was barely human. The curse was changing, not commanding him to kill now, punishing him for remembering. Black moonfire split across his back. The chained wolf shadow roared silently, its body tearing between shadow and silver. Morven lifted the broken ring high. "This is why queens die," she shouted. "Mercy opens graves. Truth wakes monsters." Elira looked at the 7 crowns. At the bracelet. At Cassian breaking under a crime he had been made to commit as a child. Then at Morven. For the first time, the priestess looked not just dangerous, desperate. The silver oath blade spoke at last. "The queen may free the children." Elira's grip tightened. "And Cassian?" The blade's silver fire dimmed. The prince must remember what the curse made him do. Cassian raised his head. His silver eyes met hers through the black fire. "Do it," he said. No hesitation. No attempt to protect himself from the truth. Elira's throat tightened. "You don't know what it will cost you." His answer was almost a whisper. "I know what forgetting already cost them." The words struck every noble still kneeling in the hall. Elira lifted the silver oath blade. Morven screamed, "If you free them, the curse will choose a new throat." The blade froze in Elira's hand. Cassian saw her face change. So did Morven. A slow smile returned to the priestess's mouth. "Yes," Morven said softly. "Now, you understand." The 7 crowns circled faster. The child's bracelet turned cold against Elira's chest. Morven's eyes burned black. "Break the curse, little queen, and it will enter the nearest royal blood still strong enough to hold it." Elira looked at Cassian, then at the glowing sigils across her own skin. Lost queen's blood, royal blood, strong enough. The silver oath blade trembled. Cassian struggled to rise. "No." Elira took one step toward the hollow. The crowns lowered toward her like waiting hands. And from beneath the moon throne, 7 children whispered in one voice. "Remember us." The 7 children's voices rose from beneath the moon throne, soft as breath against glass. Elira stood at the edge of the cracked hollow with the silver oath blade trembling in her hand. The 7 wolf-bone crowns circled her now, slow and pale, each one carrying the shape of a child the court had erased. The bracelet stained with her blood hovered against her chest, colder than winter iron. Behind her, Cassian struggled to rise. "No," he said. The word broke apart in his throat. Black moonfire had spread across his back, tearing through his armor in thin, violent lines. The chained wolf shadow behind him thrashed harder, its silver eyes flickering between rage and memory. Every time the 7 crowns moved closer to Elira, Cassian's curse mark split wider, as if the old magic were trying to decide whether to hold him or abandon him for stronger blood. Elira understood the trap. If she freed the children, the curse would leave him and enter her. Morven's smile returned fully now. Not triumph. Relief. She had found the shape of Elira's mercy and sharpened it into a blade. "You wanted truth," the priestess said. "There it is. Save the prince. Free the children, and become the cage yourself." The court remained frozen on its knees. No one spoke. No one offered to help. Elira almost laughed, but grief rose too quickly and strangled the sound. Of course they waited. They had always waited for someone scarred, lowborn, nameless, or disposable to carry what the kingdom was too proud to face. The silver oath blade pulsed in her hand. The 7 children whispered again, "Remember us." Elira looked at Cassian. He had stopped trying to stand. His hands were flat against the floor, blood streaking his fingers, his face twisted with pain and fury, not at her, but at the curse using her compassion against her. "Do not do this for me," he forced out. Elira swallowed. "I'm not." His eyes lifted to hers. She looked at the 7 crowns. "I'm doing it because children should not be buried under a throne so men can call a curse tradition." Something in Cassian's face broke. The court heard her. So did Morven. Her gaze sharpened. Spoken like someone who has never had to hold a kingdom together. Elira turned toward her. "No. Spoken like someone your kingdom was built to lose." The words struck Thornmere Hall with quiet force. Morven's fingers tightened around the cracked ring. Elira lifted the silver oath blade. The 7 crowns lowered. Cassian dragged himself one step forward on his knees. "Elira, listen to me." She did. Because his voice no longer commanded. It begged. "If the curse takes you," he said, "it will use your blood against every person you try to save. It will not only make you suffer, it will make you dangerous." Morven laughed softly. At last the prince speaks wisdom. Cassian did not look at her. His eyes stayed on Elira. "I am not saying let them stay buried," he said. "I am saying do not let it take you alone." Elira stared at him. The word alone moved through her chest like a key. All her life, pain had been private. Her scars were private. Her shame was private. Her longing for a mother whose voice she could barely remember had been private. Even when the court mocked her in public, the wound itself had always belonged to her alone. But the curse had survived by isolating every victim. The children beneath the throne. The mother trapped in the ring. The prince trained to fear his own hand. The scarred maid taught to hate her own skin. Elira looked at the silver oath blade. Can a curse enter more than one vessel? The blade did not answer with words. It turned slightly, toward Cassian. Morven's smile faltered. Cassian saw it too. A terrible calm entered his face. "No," Morven said. Elira looked at her. For the first time, the priestess sounded afraid before she had time to hide it. "No," Morven repeated, sharper now. "The curse must choose royal blood." Cassian rose to one knee with visible effort. "Then it can choose mine." "It already has," Elira said. "And I rejected you because I thought carrying it alone made me noble." His mouth tightened with pain. "It only made me easier to use." The chained wolf shadow behind him lowered its head. The 7 crowns slowed. Elira felt the oath inside the blade listening. Not to power, to consent. Morven lifted the black ring. "You cannot rewrite blood law in the middle of a royal ceremony." Elira stepped toward Cassian. The curse mark at his throat flared black. The diadem on her brow burned silver. The silver oath blade grew heavy in her hand, as if every dead queen, every hidden child, and every buried name were leaning toward this moment. "Maybe not," Elira said, "but I can refuse to let blood law right me." She stopped before Cassian. He looked up at her, breathing hard. There were 100 things unresolved between them. His rejection still cut. His fear still stood between them like a locked gate. His apology had not healed her. Her crown had not made her safe. But his hands were open now, bleeding, empty, waiting. Elira lowered the silver oath blade until its point touched the stone between them. "What must we do?" she asked. The blade's voice filled the hall. "The cursed prince must remember." Cassian closed his eyes. "The crowned queen must name." Elira's fingers tightened around the hilt. "And both must refuse the killing oath." The 7 crowns dropped to the floor around them, forming a circle of pale bone. Morven shouted, "Break the circle!" No one moved. The court was still bound. Or perhaps, Elira realized, they were simply afraid to choose a side until the winning side became obvious. Morven turned to the priests. "Break it." One young priest tried to raise his hand. The silver oath blade flashed. The old wolf lord nearest him caught his wrist. "No," the old lord said. It was the first act of defiance from the court. Small, late, but real. Morven's face twisted. Elira knelt before Cassian inside the circle of crowns. The moment her knee touched the stone, the hidden hollow beneath the throne opened wider. Moonlight poured upward, carrying voices, not screams now, but fragments of childhood. A girl laughing in snow. A boy learning to shift for the first time. A child asking if the prince would play with them after ceremony. Cassian's breath turned ragged. Memory struck him. He was 13 again, standing beneath the moon throne with a sword too heavy for his hands. 7 children in small crowns stood around him, smiling because they trusted him. They had been told they were blessing the prince. They had not known they were being fed to a curse. "I don't want to," young Cassian whispered in the memory. Morven's voice answered. "Then close your eyes." The black ring flashed. The young prince's eyes went empty. In the present, Cassian made a sound that was almost a sob. Elira reached for his hand. He flinched. Not away from her. Away from himself. She took his hand anyway, only because he let her. The memory continued, but Elira did not let the blade show the deaths. The story did not need spectacle. It needed truth. 7 crowns fell. 7 names vanished. 7 wolf spirits were sealed under the throne to feed the command buried inside Cassian's blood. The hall shook with silent horror. Cassian bowed over their joined hands. I remember. The first crown cracked. Elira lifted the silver oath blade with her free hand. Name them, the blade commanded. Elira looked at the crowns. Names rose through the blade into her throat. Not easily. Each one hurt. Auren. The first crown shattered into silver smoke. Liora. The second broke. Maelis. The third, Rovan. The fourth, Sarah. The fifth, Fane. The sixth. The last crown trembled. Elira's voice nearly failed. Cassian's hand tightened around hers, not pulling, only steadying. Nairo, Elira whispered. The 7th crown split open. 7 small wolf spirits rose from the broken bone crowns, pale and luminous, no longer faceless. They stood around Cassian and Elira, like children waking from a long, cold sleep. The chained wolf shadow behind Cassian stilled. For the first time, its throat chain loosened. Morven screamed, "No!" The black ring in her hand cracked again. Elira's mother's voice burst through it. Stronger now. Break the root beneath the throne. The moon throne groaned. Beneath it, old blood began to boil black. The real root of the curse rose from the hidden hollow, not a beast, not a spirit, but a thorned mass of black silver wrapped around an ancient crown fragment. Every thorn was carved with one word. Obey. Cassian stared at it. That is what they put in me. Morven backed away. It was necessary, she said, but the words had lost their strength. The 7 child spirits turned toward the black root, then toward Elira. The silver oath blade trembled. It could cut the root. Elira knew it. But the curse would leap. It needed royal blood. Cassian saw her understand. He raised their joined hands and pressed them both to the hilt. Together, he said. Elira looked at him. If it leaps, he said, it finds both of us refusing. Morven's voice turned sharp with panic. A shared refusal will tear the oath apart. Elira almost smiled through the tears. Good. Together, they raised the silver oath blade. The 7 child spirits lifted their small hands. The chained wolf shadow behind Cassian bowed its head. Elira's scars burned silver white. Cassian's curse mark burned black. Then both lights met in the blade. They struck the root. The throne screamed. Black moonfire erupted, flooding the circle, climbing Cassian's throat and Elira's arms at once. The curse tried to enter her scars, tried to reclaim his blood, tried to force one of them to become the killer and the other the sacrifice. Elira held the blade. Cassian held her hand. Together, they spoke. I refuse. The root cracked. Morven's ring shattered. A woman's voice screamed free. Elira's mother burst from the black stone in a storm of moonlight, not whole, not living, but no longer silent. And behind her, something far larger began to rise from the broken throne hollow. The lost queen's wolf rose from beneath the moon throne like winter remembering its teeth. It was not made of flesh, not fully. Its body was vast and pale, formed from moonfire, old grief, silver fur, and the broken prayers of a bloodline buried too long beneath stone. Its eyes were the same gray-blue as Elira's mother's. Its antlers were crowned with thorns. Around its throat hung 7 shattered links, each one glowing with the name of a child who had been fed to the curse. The hall did not breathe. Elira stood inside the circle of broken wolfbone crowns, one hand locked around the silver oath blade, the other still held by Cassian. Black moonfire smoked from her scars. Silver light bled from his curse mark. Their refusal had cracked the root but not destroyed it. The thorned mass beneath the throne still writhed. Obey. 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 The word burned across every black silver thorn. Morven fell backward as the queen's wolf lowered its head toward her. For the first time since the ceremony began, the priestess did not look like someone controlling a prophecy. She looked like someone whose prophecy had turned around. Elira, her mother's voice whispered. The moonlit shape of the woman stood behind the wolf, fragile and trembling, as if freedom had not made her whole, only audible. Her face flickered between memory and spirit, but her eyes never left Elira. Elira's throat closed. Every part of her wanted to run to that voice. The child inside her wanted arms. The scarred maid wanted answers. The queen the blade had named wanted justice. But the curse root moved first. It lashed upward from the hollow beneath the throne and struck toward Elira's chest. Cassian pulled her aside. The thorn missed her by a breath and cut across his shoulder instead. Black fire tore through his armor. He dropped to one knee, but he did not release her hand. The queen's wolf snarled. The sound cracked the moon throne from base to crown. Morven saw the opening and crawled toward the broken ring shards scattered across the floor. "Do not let it touch the root," she hissed at the priests. "If the wolf remembers its crown, the old bloodline will wake fully." No priest moved. The young one who had tried to obey her before lowered his head. Morven's face twisted. Cowards. Elira looked at her mother's spirit. "What is the wolf?" Her mother's image flickered, pained by the question. "The first queen's guardian, bound to our blood, buried when the court decided queens were safer as legends than rulers." The queen's wolf turned its great head toward Elira. Recognition passed through the bond between them, not gentle, not tame, but ancient. It did not bow. Not yet. It was not asking to serve. It was asking whether she would stand. Cassian forced himself upright beside her, breathing hard. The curse mark at his throat had split into silver and black veins now, half freed, half fighting. The root is still alive. Elira looked at the thorn mass. The children's spirits stood around it, small and luminous, unable to step closer. Her mother's spirit trembled each time the root pulsed. Cassian's wolf shadow remained chained behind him, but the lynx had loosened enough that its eyes were no longer empty. Every stolen life had been tied to that root. Every false command. Every prince forced to kill. Every queen hidden, burned, or named dangerous before she could rise. Elira lifted the silver oath blade. The blade shook violently in her hand. Not from fear. From hunger. It wanted to cut. Morven saw that and smiled through her panic. "Yes, strike it. Do you think royal curses die cleanly? Cut the root, and every life bound inside it will tear loose at once. The children. Your mother. His wolf. Perhaps even you." Elira hesitated. That was all Morven needed. "There is no clean throne, little queen," she said. "Only the one strong enough to survive the blood beneath it." Cassian's hand tightened once around Elira's. Not pulling, steadying. "She is lying," he said. Morven laughed. "Am I?" The worst thing was that Elira did not know. The silver oath blade had given command but not comfort. The lost queen's wolf had risen, but it had not promised safety. Her mother was free enough to speak, but not whole enough to live. Elira looked at the child spirits. Auren, Leora, Melis, Roven, Sera, Thane, Nira. They watched her with the terrible patience of children who had waited too long for an adult to choose them. Elira lowered the blade slightly. "What happens if I cut it?" she asked. The blade answered with a silver pulse through her scars. Her mother answered in words. "The curse breaks. And you?" Her mother's face softened. That was answer enough. Elira's breath broke. "No." The word came out small. Not queenly. Not powerful. Only a daughter refusing to lose her mother again moments after finding her. The spirit stepped closer. "My love." Elira shook her head hard, tears blurring the moonlit hall. "No. Do not call me that. And ask me to let you disappear." Cassian looked away, pain moving through his face. Not impatience, not judgment, recognition. He knew what it meant to be asked for sacrifice before anyone had given you time to grieve. Morven's smile returned, slow and cruel. "There she is. Not a queen. A child." Elira turned on her. The pain inside her sharpened, not cold, not clean, but alive. "Yes," she said. "A child you scarred. A child you hid. A child whose mother you trapped in a ring, and whose prince you trained into a weapon." The hall went silent. Elira lifted the silver oath blade again. "And still, you are more afraid of me than I am of you." The queen's wolf stepped forward. The stone beneath its paws turned white with frostfire. Morven's smile vanished. Elira looked back at the root. "If cutting it destroys everyone bound inside, then we do not cut it." Cassian's eyes flashed toward her. The blade trembled as if offended. Elira tightened her grip. We make it release what it stole. The silver oath blade went still. The queen's wolf lowered its head. Listening, Elira stepped toward the curse root. Cassian moved with her. No, she said softly. He stopped. She looked at him. Not in front of me. The words struck harder than any command. Cassian's throat moved. Then he nodded and stepped beside her. Together they faced the root. Morven's voice rose. You cannot negotiate with a curse. Elira did not look back. No, but I can command an oath. She placed the tip of the silver oath blade against the first thorn. Not cutting, naming. Orin, she said. The thorn carved with obey cracked. The first child's spirit gasped as silver light rushed back into his chest. The crown link around the queen's wolf throat shattered. Elira understood. Not one strike. One name at a time. Liora. Another thorn split. Maelis. The curse root writhed. Black fire lashing out. But Cassian caught the flame across his own forearm before it reached Elira. Pain tore through him, yet he stayed beside her, not shielding her fully, not taking her place, holding the line she had chosen. Roven. Another thorn broke. The child's spirits brightened. Morven screamed for the guards to stop them, but the court still did not rise. Some because the oath held them, others because shame finally weighed more than fear. Sira. The queen's wolf shook itself, more chains falling from its throat. Tane. Cassian's wolf shadow gave a sound like a breath after drowning. Only one thorn remained. Naira. The smallest crown, the deepest root. Elira's hand shook. The final thorn was wrapped around her mother's voice. If she named it, the ring would release fully, and whatever remained of her mother might pass beyond reach. Her mother stepped closer, moonlight flickering through her form. I did not hide you so you would live afraid of loss, she said. Elira sobbed once, then forced the name through it. Naira. The final thorn broke. The curse root convulsed. Black moonfire erupted from beneath the throne, but instead of exploding outward, it was dragged into the silver oath blade. The blade burned so hot, Elira nearly dropped it. Cassian wrapped his hand over hers, taking part of the fire into his own blood. Together, they held it. The 7 child spirits cried out as their wolf forms returned around them, pale and small and luminous. Cassian's chained wolf shadow shattered its final link, and the lost queen's wolf lowered its massive head before Elira. This time, it bowed, not to a crown, to the bloodline that had remembered its dead by name. The court watched in stunned silence. Then Elira's mother touched her cheek. Not fully, only the brush of moonlight where fingers should have been. Elira leaned into it anyway. My daughter, the spirit whispered. Now wake what they buried in you. Elira's scars flared. The royal sigils across her skin moved, no longer separate marks, but one living pattern. Wolf, moon, thorn, crown, bloodline, oath. The diadem above her brow burned white. The queen's wolf opened its jaws and breathed silver fire into her chest. Elira screamed. Cassian caught her before she fell. The hall exploded in moonlight, and when the light cleared, the scarred maid was gone. In her place stood Elira Vale, crowned in the lost queen's diadem, silver sigils blazing across her skin, the queen's wolf at her back, and the silver oath blade in her hand. The old wolf lord bowed first, then the young priest, then the guards. One by one, Thornmere court lowered itself before the queen it had been taught not to recognize. Only Morven remained standing. Her face was white with hatred. Then she lifted a second ring from beneath her robe. Cassian went still. Elira turned toward him. What is it? His voice dropped to a whisper. The death command. The words froze Thornmere Hall harder than any winter spell. Elira stood with the silver oath blade in her hand, the lost queen's diadem burning above her brow, and the queen's wolf looming behind her in silver fire. Only moments ago, the court had knelt. Only moments ago, the curse root had cracked. Only moments ago, Cassian had breathed like a man who might finally belong to his own body again. Then Morven lifted the second ring, bone white, carved with a red crescent, silent, waiting. Cassian went pale. His freed wolf shadow, still standing behind him with silver eyes and a loosened throat chain, lowered its head as if it remembered pain before it arrived. Elira looked from the ring to Cassian. "What is it?" His voice came low. "The last command," Morven smiled. "The one he never told you about." Cassian's jaw tightened. Blood still marked his hands from resisting the first curse, but he did not look away from Elira. "If the prince fails to kill the queen, the death command kills the prince." The hall went silent. Elira felt the words strike her chest. One curse to make him kill her. One command to kill him if he refused. There had never been a path where both of them lived. Morven stepped carefully over the broken wolfbone crowns, her black moon silk gown dragging through silver ash. That is how Thornmere survived. If love weakened a prince, duty removed him. Elira's scars burned. "You call that duty? I call it protection. You call every murder protection." Morven's eyes sharpened. "And you call every truth mercy, because you have never ruled anything." Cassian staggered. The bone-white ring had begun to glow. Its red crescent opened like a wet eye, and the hollow mark at Cassian's throat split again, not black this time, but white, empty, cold. Morven lifted the ring higher. "Prince of Thornmere," she began, "by moon, blood, throne, law, and oath of extinction." Cassian dropped to one knee. Elira moved toward him. The queen's wolf growled behind her, not stopping her, warning her. If Morven finished the command while Elira was close, Cassian's death might become the next chain around her throat. Cassian forced his head up. "Do not trade yourself for me." The words almost broke her. He had rejected her to save her, fought his own hand to save her, remembered dead children because she asked, refused the curse beside her, and still, even now, he was trying to leave her alive at the cost of himself. Elira tightened her grip on the silver oath blade. "No," Morven's mouth curved. "No? No more choosing which one of us dies so your laws can look holy." The court stirred. Some nobles flinched. Some priests lowered their eyes. Some guards looked toward Cassian as if waiting for him to command them, forgetting he could barely breathe. Elira saw them clearly then. All of them. The court that had watched her humiliated. The priests who had blessed the blade. The nobles who had called her scarred. The lords whose families had benefited from a curse they never questioned, because it only consumed someone else. Morven began again louder. "Prince of Thornmere." Elira raised the silver oath blade. The hall listened. Not because she shouted, because the blade did. "If this command belongs to Thornmere," Elira said, "then Thornmere will hear what it has carried." Morven's face changed. For the first time, real fear broke through her beauty. "No." Elira drove the silver oath blade into the moonlit floor. Silver fire spread outward in a perfect circle. It did not strike Morven. It did not strike Cassian. It caught every symbol of rank in the hall. Wolfbone circlets, priestess chains, noble pins, moonstone rings, guard crests. Every mark of authority flared white as the death command lifted from Morven's ring and searched for the prince it had been made to kill. Instead, it found the court. The ring screamed, not with a woman's voice. With law, every noble gasped as memory struck them. Princes dying behind closed doors, queens erased before coronation, children sealed beneath the throne, mothers silenced inside black stones, scarred girls hidden in servant halls so power could pretend it was clean. The death command did not kill them. It made them witness. Morven staggered backward. "Stop this." Elira's voice shook, but it carried. "You wanted him to die for a law? They all obeyed. Let them carry the memory of it." Cassian collapsed forward, one hand braced against the stone. The white wound at his throat began to close. Slowly, painfully, but it closed. His wolf shadow lifted its head and exhaled silver light. Morven stared at him in disbelief. "No, the command must complete." "It did," Elira said. The silver oath blade burned brighter beneath her hand. It judged the kingdom that made it. The bone-white ring cracked. A sharp white line split through the red crescent. Morven clutched it with both hands, but the damage was done. White smoke spilled between her fingers and dissolved into the silver circle across the floor. Cassian drew one breath, a living breath. Elira's knees nearly gave from relief. He looked up at her, exhausted and stunned. You broke it. No, she whispered. I made them see it. For one breath, Thornmere Hall held still. Then the black ring on Morven's other hand, the cracked one that held Elira's mother, began to bleed moonlight again. Elira turned. Her mother's voice came through, weak and urgent. Elira. The sound cut through every victory. Elira stepped toward the ring. Mother, do not free me yet. Elira stopped. The queen's wolf lowered its head. Cassian went still behind her. Morven's face twisted, not in triumph now, but in panic. Elira's mother whispered again, each word breaking as if dragged through stone. I am what keeps him alive. The hall went cold. Elira looked back at Cassian. His throat wound had closed. But beneath his skin, one thin thread of black moonlight still pulsed toward Morven's ring. And suddenly Elira understood. The death command had cracked. The killing curse had weakened. But the last root was still wrapped around her mother's trapped soul. The last root was her mother. Elira stood in the silver circle, with the silver oath blade still buried in the floor, her scars burning white beneath the lost queen's diadem. Around her, Thornmere Court trembled under the memories the death command had forced into their bones. Nobles wept without understanding why. Priests clutched their moon chains as if sacred metal could still protect them from what they had helped bury. But Elira heard none of them clearly. She heard only her mother breathing through Morven's broken black ring. Weak, trapped, still holding Cassian alive. The thread of black moonlight pulsed from the ring to the hollow mark at Cassian's throat, thin as hair, dark as buried blood. Each time it moved, Cassian's chest rose with another breath. Elira looked at him. He was on one knee, exhausted, bleeding, but alive. His freed wolf shadow crouched behind him, silver-eyed and watchful, no longer chained at the throat. Yet the shadow still leaned toward the black ring like part of its soul remained hooked there. Cassian saw the thread too. His face changed. No, he said quietly. Elira's hand tightened on the blade's hilt. Morven laughed once, but it broke halfway. Now you see why I kept her. Elira turned toward her. The priestess stood near the cracked altar, both rings damaged, her perfect black moon silk torn by silver fire. Panic lived under her skin now, not because she had lost control of the court, not because Cassian had survived, because the thing she had hidden was finally visible. Elira's mother whispered again. Do not cut it. Elira's throat closed. Why? The answer came with pain. When Morven sealed me, she tied my voice to his curse. If I break free too quickly, the last command returns to his blood. Cassian pushed himself upright. Then leave me bound. No, Elira said immediately. The word came from somewhere deeper than thought. Cassian's eyes moved to hers. There it was again. The impossible choice. Her mother or him. Freedom or breath. Love or survival before love had even been allowed to become its full name. Morven's voice softened into poison. A queen must learn to choose a kingdom over a heart. Elira looked at her. You are not teaching me anything. I taught your mother. She chose to hide you. My mother chose to save me from you. Morven's face tightened. The black ring bled more moonlight. Elira's mother cried out. Cassian took one step toward Morven, but pain struck his throat and forced him back. The thread pulled tight, dragging breath from him as punishment. Elira moved before fear could stop her. She pulled the silver oath blade from the floor. The silver circle faded from the court and gathered instead along the blade's edge. The queen's wolf rose behind her, huge and silent, its silver fur bristling as if it understood the knife-thin path ahead. Elira walked toward Morven. The priestess lifted the black ring. One more step and I close her voice forever. Elira stopped. The hall went still. Morven smiled through shaking lips. There, even crowned, still a daughter. Elira's eyes burned. Yes. The answer unsettled Morven. Elira lifted the blade, not toward the priestess, but toward the thread between the ring and Cassian. I am a daughter, she said. I am scarred. I am afraid. I want my mother back so badly I can barely breathe. Her voice trembled, and she let it. The court did not get a cold queen. Not tonight. They got the girl they had wounded, standing with grief in her mouth and fire in her hands. But I will not let you turn that love into another cage. The silver oath blade answered. Moonlight ran along its edge, then sank into Elira's scars. The royal sigils shifted again, no longer only revealing her bloodline. They formed a pattern around her wrists, her throat, her heart. Wolf, moon, thorn, crown, name, choice. Her mother's voice broke from the ring. Elira, listen to me. Elira did. For the first time, not as a child begging not to be left. As the queen the blade had named. I held the thread because I could not hold you, her mother whispered. I kept him alive because one day he would stand between you and the curse. Cassian closed his eyes. Pain moved across his face, but not shame this time. Grief. Elira stepped closer to the thread. Then we do not cut you free, she said softly. We call you back by name. Morven's eyes widened. No. Elira looked at Cassian. What is her name? He froze. The court froze with him. Morven's mouth opened in horror. Cassian understood before Elira finished asking. His family had erased the lost queen's line. The priests had sealed the mother in a ring. Morven had hidden Elira beneath scars. But Cassian had been raised among forbidden histories. He might know the name the court pretended was dead. His voice came rough. Queen Cassian Veyr. The black ring screamed. Elira's knees nearly buckled. Selene. Her mother had a name. Not echo. Not trapped voice. Not sacrifice. Not root. A name. Elira raised the silver oath blade and spoke it into the hall. Elira Vale. The queen's wolf howled. The sigils on Elira's skin burned bright enough to blind. The thread between the ring and Cassian split into 3 strands. One wrapped around Cassian's throat, one around the black ring, and one around Elira's heart. Morven stumbled back. Do not answer her. But the ring answered. A woman's form rose from the cracked black stone in a storm of moonlight and winter roses. Elira's mother appeared fully for the first time, pale and trembling, her spirit still pierced by the dark thread but no longer silent. Elira almost reached for her. Almost. Then Celine shook her head. Not yet. Elira stopped with a sob trapped behind her teeth. Celine turned to Cassian. Prince. Cassian bowed his head, though pain nearly took him down. My queen. No. Celine whispered. Not queen. Witness. The word struck the curse thread. Cassian gasped. Celine lifted both ghostly hands and placed them over the dark strand at his throat. Elira cannot free me by cutting, she said. You cannot live by forgetting. The curse survives because every victim was kept alone. Elira understood. Not cut. Not trade. Share the truth until the root had nowhere to hide. She stepped beside Cassian. This time, he did not try to move in front of her. Together, they placed their hands on the silver oath blade. Celine placed her spirit hands over theirs. The queen's wolf lowered its massive head behind Elira. Cassian's freed wolf shadow stepped beside it. 2 wolves. 2 bloodlines. 1 blade. Elira spoke first. I name Cassian Veyr, mother of Elira Vale. Witness of the hidden queen's blood, Cassian followed, voice shaking but clear. I name the curse placed in my blood without my consent. Celine whispered. I name the love they made into a weapon. The silver oath blade blazed. The dark thread snapped away from Cassian's throat. He fell forward, gasping. Alive. Free. For one breath, Elira felt victory. Then the broken thread whipped back toward Morven. The priestess screamed as it wrapped around her wrist, then her throat. Black moonlight burned into her skin, where she had once directed it through others. The black ring shattered fully. Celine's spirit staggered, free but fading. Elira reached for her. No. Celine smiled through the light. I am not leaving. Not yet. The hall shook. Beneath Morven's feet, the floor cracked open in the shape of the same crescent she had carved into Cassian's throat. The curse had lost its prince. It had lost its root. Now it clung to the hand that had fed it. Morven looked at Elira with pure hatred. Then the dark thread pulled tight, and every hidden command she had ever spoken began carving itself into her skin. Not all at once. Onebiwan. A black crescent burned at her throat first, matching the mark she had placed on Cassian years ago. Then silver lines opened across her hands, her wrists, her chest, crawling like living script beneath her pale skin. Morven screamed. No one moved to help her. The court watched the priestess who had named cruelty as protection finally become the body that carried her own law. Elira stood beside Cassian, with the silver oath blade gripped between them. Her mother's spirit hovered before the shattered ring, free but faint, while the queen's wolf and Cassian's wolf shadow guarded them like two halves of an old truth. The dark thread tightened around Morven. Words appeared across her skin. Reject. Obey. Kill. Forget. Hide. Cassian's jaw clenched. Elira felt his whole body go still beside her. Those were the words that had lived inside his blood. The commands that had bent his hand toward her throat. The laws that had made him believe rejection was the only mercy left. Now they belonged to the woman who had fed them. Morven fell to her knees, clawing at her own arms. Stop it. Elira's voice was quiet. You taught the curse to listen. Morven looked up, hatred burning through pain. I taught it to protect the realm. No, Cassian said. His voice was rough but steady. Everyone turned toward him. For most of his life, Thornmere had known him as the cold prince, the dangerous prince, the heir who refused every bride, every match, every soft thing offered to him. They had called him disciplined. Now they saw the cost. Cassian stepped forward, though pain still dragged at him. His freed wolf shadow followed, no longer chained, no longer empty-eyed. You taught me to fear every woman my blood recognized, he said. You taught me mercy meant distance. You taught me love was a blade waiting for permission. Morven's mouth twisted. And you lived. Cassian looked at Elira, then back at Morven. No, I survived. The words struck harder than anger. Elira saw several nobles lower their eyes. Good. Let them look away from him now, not from her. The silver oath blade pulsed in Elira's hand. Celine's spirit turned toward the moon throne, where the broken hollow still glowed beneath the cracked stone. The curse is not finished. Elira's relief vanished. Morven heard it too, and began to laugh. Even on her knees, even with commands burning through her skin, she laughed like someone who still had one door left unopened. You think I was the root? She whispered. I was the keeper. The queen's wolf growled. The sound shook frost from the high windows. Elira raised the blade. Then where's the root? Morven smiled through blood. At the place, every queen of your line was erased. The moon throne trembled. The 7 child spirits gathered closer to Elira. Their pale wolf forms flickered, frightened now. Cassian's wolf shadow lowered itself beside them, protective without command. Celine looked at Elira with sorrow. Elira understood before her mother spoke. The crown crypt, Celine whispered. A murmur moved through the court. The crown crypt lay beneath Thornmere Hall, under the old royal graves. It was where dead kings were sealed with their wolf bones, where royal brides were buried without names, where no servant was allowed to carry a candle and no priest entered alone. Morven's eyes glittered. Your bloodline is down there, little queen. What is left of it? I see end of end. Elira's scars burned cold. Cassian turned to her. You do not have to go tonight. Morven laughed again. If she waits, the curse will grow a new command. It always does. That is what old laws do when frightened people still need them. Elira hated that Morven was right. The court had seen truth, but truth did not destroy a system by being witnessed once. The death command had cracked. Cassian was free for now. Her mother's voice was no longer trapped in the ring. But beneath the palace, something older still held the names of Elira's bloodline. And if it remained hidden, Morven's followers could build the curse again. Elira looked down at the silver oath blade. The blade did not pull. It waited. Choice again. Always choice. Now that everyone wanted to know what she would do with it. Elira turned toward the court. Every noble was still on their knees. Some from shame, some from fear, some because they were waiting to see whether the scarred maid would become a queen they could obey safely. She would not give them safety that easily. Open the crown crypt, she said. The old wolf lord bowed his head. Your Majesty, the crypt answers only royal blood. Elira lifted her scarred arm. The sigils across her skin burned white. Then it will answer. Morven's smile sharpened again. And when it does, you will see why I burned those marks into you. Cassian moved closer to Elira. I go with you. The words were immediate. Elira looked at him. The rejection still lived between them. So did the near strike, the apology, the trust, the shared refusal. None of it had settled into something simple yet. "You are still wounded," she said. "So are you." That is not an argument. His mouth shifted, almost a smile, but too tired to become one. "No. It is the only honest thing I have." Elira held his gaze. Then she nodded once. "Not forgiveness. Permission." Morven tried to rise. The dark commands carved into her skin tightened and forced her back to her knees. Elira looked at the young priests. "Bind her." None of them moved. Elira's eyes sharpened. "Not with curse law. With iron. Human iron. The kind that does not pretend to be holy." A guard stepped forward first. Then another. Morven stared in disbelief as ordinary iron shackles closed around her wrists. No moonfire. No prophecy. No sacred words. Just metal. It seemed to offend her more than magic would have. Cassian watched with grim satisfaction. Celine's spirit drifted to Elira's side. "The crypt will test what kind of queen you are willing to become." Elira swallowed. "What if I fail?" Her mother's gaze softened. "Then fail as yourself, not as the girl they invented." The Queen's Wolf turned toward the far end of Thornmere Hall. Stones split there, revealing a stairway descending beneath the moon throne. Cold air rose from below, carrying the smell of old crowns, wet earth, and names that had not been spoken in generations. The 7 child spirits moved first. Then the Queen's Wolf. Then Cassian's freed wolf shadow. Elira stepped toward the stairs with the silver oath blade in her hand, and Cassian beside her. Behind them, Morven spoke one last time. Her voice was soft now, almost kind. "That is where your mother died." Elira stopped. Celine closed her eyes. Cassian went still. Morven smiled from her knees. "And it is where the queen and you will have to decide whether to let her stay dead." The stairway below opened wider, and from the darkness of the crown crypt a woman began to sing Elira's childhood lullaby. The lullaby came from the dark below the moon throne. Elira stopped at the first step. For one breath, she forgot the court behind her, forgot Morven in iron, forgot the silver oath blade in her hand, and the diadem burning above her brow. The song was too soft, too broken, too familiar in a place where nothing familiar should have survived. Cassian stood beside her, still wounded, still pale, but steady. "You do not have to go down alone," he said. Elira looked at him. The rejection still lived between them. So did the sword that had almost reached her heart. But so did his bloodied hands, the way he had fought his own curse, and the way he had chosen to remember what would have been easier to bury. "No," she said. "I don't." Together they descended. The crown crypt was not vast. It was worse than vast. It was small. A low stone chamber beneath the throne, cold and airless, with no royal banners, no carved glory, no songs of kings. Only 7 cracked wolf-bone crowns on a black altar, old blood dried into the floor, and a silver thorn cage hanging where a chandelier should have been. Inside the cage burned a white flame. The lullaby came from it. Elira's breath caught. "Mother?" Celine's spirit appeared beside the cage, faint and trembling. Her face was softer now, clearer, but not whole. A dark thread ran from the white flame through her chest, then upward through the stone ceiling toward Cassian. Elira saw it. Cassian saw it too. His throat tightened. Celine looked at her daughter with grief in her eyes. "Morven did not only trap my voice in the ring, she tied my last breath to his curse. As long as I remain bound, the final killing law cannot fully take him." Elira's hand tightened around the silver oath blade. "So if I free you, the last root dies," Celine whispered. "But the breath I used to hold it back dies with me." Cassian stepped forward at once. "Then no." Elira turned to him. His voice was rough, but clear. "I will not live because your mother stays trapped under my throne." The words struck the chamber harder than any spell. Celine closed her eyes. Elira felt something in herself break and mend at the same time. All her life, choices had been made around her body, her scars, her blood, her name, her mother's silence, Cassian's curse, Morven's law. Every path had demanded that someone become a cage so someone else could survive. Not again. Elira lifted the silver oath blade. "I am not cutting her free. Cassian looked at her. Celine's face softened. Elira stepped toward the cage. And I am not leaving her here. The blade warmed in her hand. Not hungry. Listening. Elira looked at her mother. Tell me what they stole first. Celine's lips trembled. My name, Elira nodded. Of course. It was always the first burial. Not the body. The name. She turned toward the ceiling, toward the court above, toward every stone that had pretended not to hear. My mother is Cassian Veyr, Elira said. The crypt shook. The white flame inside the cage flared. She was not a root, not a sacrifice, not a hidden breath inside a prince's curse. The silver thorns began to crack. She was queen, blood. She was mother. She was witness. Cassian stepped beside her. His voice joined hers, low and steady. And I will not breathe on what was stolen from her. The dark thread between Celine and Cassian tightened violently. Cassian staggered, but did not step back. Elira reached for his hand. He let her take it. Together they placed their joined hands around the hilt of the silver oath blade. Elira spoke the final words. I name Cassian Veyr free. The blade flashed white. The silver thorn cage broke open. The white flame rushed into Celine, not consuming her, but returning what had been stolen. For one impossible moment, Elira's mother stood whole before her, bright with moonlight, winter roses, and every lullaby Elira had forgotten she knew. Elira sobbed once. Celine touched her cheek. This time, Elira felt warmth. My daughter, Celine whispered. You were never the scar they gave you. You were the blood they feared. The dark thread snapped. Cassian gasped. The curse mark at his throat split open, then vanished into silver ash. His freed wolf shadow lowered its head and breathed for the first time like something living. Above them, Thornmere Hall shook. Not collapsing, changing. The old moon throne cracked from base to crown. The sound rolled through the palace like a law breaking. In the crypt, the 7 wolf-bone crowns dissolved into pale light, and the 7 child spirits rose behind Celine, free at last. Morven screamed from above. The sound did not matter anymore. Selina began to fade. Elira reached for her. No, Celine smiled through tears. I am not buried now. That is enough. It is not enough. No, Celine said softly. But it is true. Then she leaned close and kissed Elira's brow beneath the lost queen's diadem. Rule as yourself. Her spirit lifted into white ash, not falling, not vanishing into darkness, but rising through the broken stone toward dawn. The child spirits followed her. The queen's wolf threw back its head and howled, a sound so vast that every window in Thornmere Hall burst open above. Elira stood shaking. Cassian did not pull her into his arms. He only stood beside her until she could breathe again. That mattered. When they returned to the hall, the court was still on its knees. The moon throne was split in half. Morven knelt in iron, the commands she had fed into others carved across her own skin. The nobles stared at Elira, as if seeing the scars on her body for the first time. Not ruin, royal sigils. Elira lifted the silver oath blade. The curse is broken, she said. The names will be restored. The children will be remembered. The throne will no longer survive by burying queens. No one argued. No one dared. Then Cassian stepped forward. Slowly, before the entire court, he lowered himself to one knee before her. Not forced by curse. Not commanded by blade. Chosen. I rejected you to save you, he said, voice rough. But I still wounded you. Yes, Elira said. I cannot ask you to forgive me. No, she said. You cannot. He bowed his head. Then I will begin with truth. Elira looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped down beside him, not into his arms, not into surrender, but into the space where a new beginning might one day stand. That is where you begin, she said. The silver oath blade lowered its tip to the floor and knelt. The queen's wolf bowed behind her. One by one, Thornmere Court followed. And beneath the morning moon, the scarred maid they had rejected stood crowned at last, not because a prince chose her, but because the truth did.